You specialize with the PGA Tour and dealing with these golfers, and you've had interactions with Tiger Woods. Again, when we talk about the 5 surgeries that he's gone through, he most recently was here in Southern California at Pacific Palisades at the Riviera Country Club for the Genesis. And what feel did you get from Tiger most recently? Did it seem like he was going to be able to bounce back? Because you remember a few years back, I think he was at a dinner at the Masters, and he was saying, I don't know that I can play again. I might be done. Did it feel like he was really positive and optimistic about his comeback?
I've learned over the years and the decades in covering Tiger Woods, you never underestimate him and what he can't do. Absolutely, I didn't see this as a major setback, his most recent procedure with his back, that he would be able to come back and compete on a high level on the world's greatest stage. I didn't know exactly when that would happen, but it seemed inevitable that it was going to happen. And now, he has another setback. And first and foremost, we hope that he doesn't have anything that's life-threatening. If this is something that's going to force more rehabilitation, more focus, that, we hope Tiger can have the mental strength to do this, and we think he will. But, we want to get through this day. We want to make sure, and I say I'm talking about everybody on the PGA Tour, we want to make sure that he's healthy. And then we'll start talking comebacks a little later.
And one thing that one of our producers, Stephanie, brought up, and it's a great point, beyond his successes, possibly the greatest golfer of all time, we have to remember that he's a father who has 2 young children. Of course, gained a lot of attention. He playing with his son most recently at the end of last year in that tournament in Florida. And you know that they have got to be so concerned about seeing this crash scene here and hearing that their father has suffered significant injuries to his leg, Todd.
Yeah, of course they are. He has become so close with his kids over the last few years. Not to say that he was ever not close with them, but they're getting close to the teenage years now, and there's a strong bond between both Sam and Charlie, his 2 kids. And he's done a lot for kids, not only for his kids, but the TGR Foundation has been able to raise millions and millions of dollars to get kids into colleges that otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity. And that's something that he was incredibly proud of, and why he was in Pacific Palisades for the Genesis Invitational to promote what his foundation has been able to do. So, yes, he's done a lot on the golf course, but he's done quite a bit off the golf course and in his personal life as well. So this is it's just tough to hear.
Yeah, it certainly is. And Todd, if we can ask you to hang with us just a bit longer, we want to bring in investigative reporter Eric Leonard right now. And Eric, what have you been able to glean from this?
Well, right now everything's really in its early stage, so we should probably use some caution with these first tidbits of information that we hear from some of our law enforcement sourcing. Crashes like this, especially now that it's a static scene where it's not like the car is still moving, investigators have a lot of time to go through and figure out what happened. And crash investigations these days are nothing like they were 20 years ago. In fact, the more modern and the more sophisticated, and oftentimes the more expensive the car involved, the greater amount of information that's available to a crash investigator, because a lot of modern cars carry what they call event recorders, which is something like a mini black box that you'd find on an airliner, and it records continuously the basic parameters of a car's movement, the RPMs of the engine if it has a gasoline motor, the estimated speed, whether or not brakes were being applied, whether or not steering was being applied, and it keeps a couple of minutes of that information, sometimes much more, in a memory system. And when there's an impact, it saves it. And oftentimes in serious crashes that are worth the investigative effort, detectives are able to go and extract that information, oftentimes with the assistance of the vehicle manufacturer, and it can tell a lot about everything that was going on in that car right before the impact happened, especially in cases where the driver or the occupants are unavailable to give that information, or if perhaps they don't have a clear recollection of it. So that's probably one of the first things that they'll look to see if that even exists.
Well, Eric, I mean, we should point out, Eric,
yes.
I was just going to mention, this being this brand new Genesis SUV, you would assume it would be fully loaded with that type of technology.
Sure, especially when we see promotional events where the vehicles are tied in. Usually they're not putting out one of the low-end models. They offer up the highest tech, the best one they've got, and certainly it would not be a surprise if this vehicle had that kind of recording capability. The second thing I was going to mention is that as traffic investigations have evolved with the advent of this kind of information, it's also more and more rare for detectives to have to investigate a crash where there isn't some kind of video material that's connected with it. So many cars now, especially commercial cars or trucks, delivery vans, are driving around with cameras that are constantly recording at minimum what's going on outside the front windshield. Sometimes they have far more cameras. Some of the Teslas have multiple cameras. City buses from I think almost all of the municipalities in Southern California not only have a camera that records out the front, but records almost 360 degrees. They were installed for liability reasons because people will claim that they got knocked over or bumped by a bus, or there was a minor traffic collision, or somebody slipped and fell. But these recordings can be kept sometimes for weeks at a time, and for all we know, there was a bus passing by. There was another car with a dashboard camera passing by, and so investigators will try to retrace those individuals to find out if they have recordings that might help paint a picture of what happened here. And then there's the traditional investigative methods right there at the scene, measuring skid marks, looking for all of the things that the vehicle struck. And by putting all those three areas together, they can usually get a pretty good sense of what was happening, even before, I should say, speaking with the driver. Given the significance of this incident, it is likely that the Sheriff's Department, the LA County Sheriff's Department, which does law enforcement in this area, will bring in some of its more experienced traffic investigators. They're going to examine this scene the same way they would any other kind of really serious crash where there might have been a fatality or there might have been serious injuries or a major amount of property damage.
Just the fact, Eric, that this happened on this hillside here, I mean, how much more complicated does it make this investigation? You said that investigators have time on their hands, but oftentimes, I've covered a bunch of these crashes, and they'll usually have these scenes cleared up within a few hours. So it is a little bit, I guess, interesting and unusual to me that it's now 5 hours later and this vehicle is still here.
Right, and I think that it's probably fair to assess here that one component of that is just the nature of who was involved here. But you're right, it is unusual for a street to be closed down for this long for what appears to be a single car collision where nobody else appears at this point to be involved. But remember that a lot of times only one car gets damaged in an event that actually involves two or more, that somebody could be swerving to avoid another driver. There could have been something else going on the roadway at that time that caused someone to veer off. In this case, it looks like the car went in a direction opposite the nearest lane of traffic. So there might be other factors at play here that we just don't have a handle on yet, which might explain, beyond the fact that it involved a world-famous sports figure, why the road's been closed off for this long. And the other thing I'll mention is that when cars go off the road, sometimes investigators lose some of those key clues that you can get on asphalt, because cars traveling across a hard surface like that leave marks, both the tires and the chassis itself, that can help explain what happened. Once a car goes off-road, some of those little bits of evidence and clues become harder to detect. So we'll have to see where all that goes.
Yeah, and we've talked about, you mentioned cameras on other vehicles in the area. Perhaps we'll be getting more information from that. Could there also be cameras within this neighborhood? We've seen so many more of those in neighborhoods and on streets. Could those be in existence?
Well, absolutely, and any competent investigator is going to look for every source of material. On roadways in LA County, there are some cameras that are there to monitor traffic conditions but aren't necessarily recorded. Those are often like the Caltrans cameras that sometimes we pop on and look at during our newscasts in the morning to get a look at how the freeway traffic might be moving somewhere. There are lots more than just those freeway cameras. They are also set up at a lot of busy intersections systems that help manage traffic flow. Very few of those are recorded, though. So even if those types of cameras were in this area, it's a roll of the dice to know whether or not there would be some material to go back and look at. But to your point, lots of people have cameras recording 24/7 at their homes. Yeah. People have these automatic doorbells that record whenever there's movement in front. So the investigators might want to do some shoe leather work here and start looking at any of the adjacent businesses and homes in the area. Chances are somebody is going to have some material somewhere that will help explain more of what happened.
And we spoke with one of the neighbors, Paul, in the area, who described to us that this northbound, it's a little difficult to tell from this vantage point that we have, but he says that it is a downhill sort of stretch here where cars do tend to accelerate and pick up speed, even though the speed limit is 45 miles an hour. He had mentioned there was a very similar crash some months back where a car also went from the northbound lanes, crossed over southbound, and ended up in the shrubs, similar to where Tiger's car landed. And we should mention this all happened almost exactly 5 hours ago, about 7:12 in the morning. Adrian.
Yeah, it was around 7:12 this morning near the border of Rolling Hills Estates and Rancho Palos Verdes that Tiger Woods was traveling northbound, according to the Sheriff's Department. Traveling northbound on Hawthorne Boulevard at Black Horse Road when his vehicle crashed. The vehicle, as you can see, sustained major damage. Tiger Woods had to be extricated from this wreckage with the jaws of life. Those are specialized hydraulic tools, and we've just learned within the last 15 minutes or so that Tiger Woods has sustained some significant injuries to his leg. And that he is undergoing surgery right now. Tiger Woods, of course, coming off multiple back surgeries, which is why he did not play in the tournament here in Southern California over the weekend. He was there at Riviera Country Club in Pacific Palisades, though, as host to the tournament, the Genesis Invitational, and he was there on behalf of his TGR Foundation that is headquartered in Irvine and was still in this area when he was involved in this crash this morning. So his exact condition right now, we're still working on finding out what his exact condition is, the exact nature of his injuries. But we know that reaction is starting to roll in from the PGA Tour, people who are friends and colleagues of Tiger Woods, and they say they're absolutely sick to their stomach. We're told that some of them even have some tears welling up in their eyes, very emotional for them to see this crash scene. And of course, they are concerned about the well-being of his kids. He has the 2 children, a son and a daughter, and certainly they are monitoring this as well. And your hearts go out to them because they're still very young and they have to be concerned about their dad right now.
Of course, and we've seen them a lot at tournaments with him recently. And, you know, just this weekend, Tiger was speaking during that Genesis Invitational about his future and how he was feeling, talked about feeling better, but feeling a bit stiff. And he did speak to his hope of being ready to play again in the Masters in April. You know, it was such a comeback we saw 3 years ago when he won the Masters. I mean, I think a lot of people had thought that achieving another Masters was out of reach for Tiger with all the troubles he's had with his back and his injuries and overcoming obstacles. But, you know, we heard Todd Lewis say you can never underestimate this man, that the strength of Tiger is just incredible. And Adrian, as you mentioned, he spoke about the players on tour right now just getting this word in Florida as they're ready to hit the links. Very challenging for them because Tiger is such an icon in this sport. And we're also hearing from celebrities who are reacting to this, celebrities who are quite close with him. And here we have Jada Pinkett Smith tweeting, "Prayers go up for the greatest of all time." Adrian, perhaps you can weigh in on some of these.
Yes, and this looks like this was a picture from David Spade as we kind of scroll through the reaction that's just pouring in right now from celebrities and athletes, those who know Tiger Woods and who recently played with him. Seeing some reaction from Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas is also on the PGA Tour, a very well-established golfer, has won multiple tournaments, who is friends with Tiger Woods and friends with Tiger's son. They're known to rib each other. They have that type of relationship. And Justin Thomas was just asked about this crash involving Tiger. He said, quote, "I am sick to my stomach. It hurts to see one of your closest friends get in an accident. I hope he's all right. I'm just worried for his kids."
It is just devastating. And we want to go back to Megan Reyes right now. She's been over the scene for us and really able to kind of walk us through what happened here. Megan.
You know, Carolyn, this could have been a lot worse here. We're talking about the severity of this accident. Speed definitely a factor. We don't know what caused the collision. We're not making any assumptions, but just from the evidence below, seeing where right over here is where the initial impact of that sign occurred. This is just south of Black Horse Road off of Hawthorne Boulevard. And this point here, again, is this is Hawthorne Boulevard. Going northbound brings you downhill at this particular spot. This appears to be the area where the vehicles seem to travel on the opposite side of the road. And again, it could have been a lot worse. It was during the morning commute. Fortunately, there was no head-on collision. That would have definitely been a more catastrophic situation here. But right now, it seems to be a solo vehicle collision. The cause is under investigation. You can see LA County Sheriff deputies right now. They're doing the measurements, but the vehicle traveling on the wrong side of the road hit a couple of trees, smaller trees, but the severity of the damage to the front of that vehicle just shows you how severe this accident was. Literally, the front of that vehicle just smashed in, and that definitely can confirm the reports, the initial reports we're getting about the type of injuries sustained by Tiger Woods during this accident. When firefighters and paramedics rolled up on the scene, they had to use the jaws of life in order to get him out of the vehicle. Look at that car laying on the left side, which means the driver is laying pretty much on the dirt on the top. That is the passenger side, so they had to use the jaws of life, rip open that windshield, pull the driver out, and take him to a nearby hospital. Again, the driver is Tiger Woods. And look at right over here. You can see there's a shrub and part of a tree branch and the tree stump, I should say. So that vehicle going up the hill took out a couple of bushes and no doubt a couple of trees. And again, this could have been worse. It could have been a head-on collision. It's a solo vehicle accident, but the cause is under investigation right now.
Megan, as you move your camera left, I know you're sort of blocked by that tree there, but is it possible to see sort of the path that the car took? I mean, you pointed out the trees that were sort of knocked down right by where it came to a stop, and it clearly had rolled over there. But can you see, did it wipe out other trees and shrubbery as it careened off the road and up that hill there?
Yeah, we're moving around right now. Carolyn, you made a great observation earlier. What we are not seeing are skid marks. There are no skid marks. Yeah. What this is debris from the impact from the vehicle. There's a part of that sign that I would guesstimate is probably about 50 yards from the initial point where that sign was. Deputies here, you just kind of follow the debris field. So right about in this area, as we're moving the helicopter around, we believe that's where it went up the road or up the hill, and somewhere along this trajectory, right along this path. I mean, Carolyn, look how close it came to that tree right there. That's a pretty sturdy tree. Had it hit that, we could have been reporting a different situation here. But right there in between, you can see the path.
Yeah,
yeah, and also the power pole. You are correct. So it entered this area just past the power line, or that power pole, missed the power pole, came up there and to the right there to the left of that tree, continued, flipped over, and then landed on the other side over here. So it could have been worse, but still, we're not minimizing the severity of this accident. A very serious crash happening a little before 7:30 this morning. And again, I want to show you, this is Hawthorne Boulevard. Check it out. Hawthorne Boulevard to the right is northbound, which means it's going downhill. So as you go downhill, obviously you tend to go a little faster here. We're not trying to assume what type of driving was happening, but by the debris field and the damage to the vehicle, there's no doubt this vehicle was traveling at a high rate of speed, and the investigation is underway exactly as to what happened and what caused this vehicle to lose control.
Got it. And right now we're going to bring in Mario Solis, NBC4 sports anchor. Mario, can you tell us what you're hearing about this crash involving Tiger Woods?
Well, I think you have been covering the actual incident. I don't really have any additional information regarding that, but I do know that, as we all know, he lives in Florida, and he was in town last week for his annual tournament, the Genesis Invitational at Riviera Country Club. We were there last week and spoke to tournament officials about the impact Tiger Woods has had not only on the game of golf, but also his incredible charity events through his TGR Foundation. This is a foundation organization that helps the youth, not only in terms of monetary effort, but also a lot of training. There's a lot of schoolwork involved, and we know that Tiger Woods is very much involved in this sort of effort. Tiger didn't play, of course, in the tournament. He did speak about that recent back surgery, and that, in fact, was his 5th back surgery. That took place on December 23rd. He talked about this maybe not being able to play in the Masters because of that injury, and something that's been reoccurring. But Tiger, as you know, is a fighter. He's gone through that incredible scandal, came back to regain his form. He's had many physical ailments, has played through pain on many occasions. And the fact that he's come back to play at the same level, winning Masters, or winning majors, I should say, is absolutely incredible. And the magnetism, he's bigger than life. Every time I've seen Tiger Woods play at a tournament, all the attention is focused on him. The number of people that want to see him tee off, that follow him along the 18 holes is absolutely amazing. Never seen anything like that with any other player. And Tiger has always been generous. Of course, he's always focused, but in terms of just giving back to the public, giving back to the people, and giving back to the city of LA, because, of course, he grew up here in Cerritos and played at Riviera. That's the one course that he's never been able to master. He's never won at Riviera Country Club, even though it's so close to home, and he loves not only the tournament but the golf course as well. Again, Tiger is a fighter, so we're hoping that that sort of effort and that sort of personality in this instance can, of course, come to his aid.
And just a couple days ago, he was asked specifically about the Masters being 7 weeks out. Was he ready to play? This interview happened during the Genesis tournament, and his response was, God, I hope so. I got to get there first based on my surgeons, doctors, and therapists, and I do it correctly. This is the only back I got, of course, speaking to that effort. And we know he was due for one more MRI before he was really planning to accelerate his training on the golf course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this back issue has been something that has started a long time ago, and we've seen it not only in tournaments but also this recent documentary just showing how Tiger Woods is just unable to say no. He's an incredible, fierce competitor, always wants to be on top of his game, and we've seen that since he was a young child growing up here in Southern California, and then completely dominating the game of golf. It's truly remarkable the way Tiger Woods has been able to dominate the game and become such a bigger than life figure.
And let's not discount that what this might have done to his back, either re-aggravated.
Right.
I mean, 5 back surgeries, including a spinal fusion surgery. I mean, that is serious business. The fact that he's even been able to play sports at a professional level once again has been remarkable, and that's what made that comeback, that win at the Masters, so great, was that people didn't think physically he would be able to come back. So we know that he's undergoing surgery, according to his agent, for multiple injuries to his leg, but wondering how his back's holding up after that, because that crash scene, the wreckage, it's just horrific, and that had taken a tremendous toll on his body.
Yeah, it most certainly has. We want to bring Megan Reyes back in right now. And Megan, we've seen the crash investigators on the road there, really charting everything out. Are they making their way closer to the vehicle now? Is that sort of how this works?
Carolyn, they have accident reconstructionists on scene. I'm pretty sure of that, as well as investigators, and they're doing all the measurements, and they're trying to get all the information as to what led up to this collision here involving this this particular vehicle here driven by Tiger Woods. They're probably going to leave the vehicle as it is right now. I don't know as far as the evidence that could be considered evidence, and they don't want to really tamper with that until they can do some type of maybe inventory search of this vehicle. That could be part of the investigation policy and procedure. I'm not too sure exactly with the LA County Sheriffs, but most likely, again, they do have accident reconstructionists, and we do see that. They're going to reconstruct this accident. They're going to get all the information. They're going to call for witnesses, and we never know. With so many people who have dash cam videos, they're going to try to see if there's any video evidence of this collision. Does this vehicle itself have a dash cam video? So all that is being taken into consideration right now. They are doing the measurements here. They're trying to get all the particular information they need in order to reconstruct this accident and find out exactly as to what happened. We do know speed definitely was a factor. We're not saying speed is the reason of the collision, but we're saying that this vehicle, by the evidence of what we see, has been was traveling rather at a high rate of speed on northbound Hawthorne Boulevard, which right here at this particular point of Hawthorne Boulevard puts it at a downhill slope. So could that have contributed to the speed? All that will be determined as the investigation is just beginning.
And Megan, one thing I noticed when you pulled out wide and you showed us the northbound approach to sort of where this accident happened, it's sort of an S curve. And we notice on highways that have that kind of S curve, they're often very dangerous. They're often accident prone because drivers, have to, even if you pull out wider, I had noticed before, you could really see the curve to the road, back that way. So you kind of wonder where, in fact, problems could have arisen here.
Yeah, right over here, Carolyn, this is Hawthorne Boulevard, and you can see Black Horse Ranch Road, or Black Horse Road Ranch. That is that particular location. Now, we start picking up some speed here because we start going downhill, and you were talking about where the road curves. Well, coincidentally, we don't know if that is a factor to the accident, but right where it starts to make that turn, that's where the vehicle crossed the road just by the evidence that we saw. Let me try to find it.
Yeah.
It's right here. That's where we believe this is the initial point where the vehicle crossed the lanes, went onto the traveling northbound, went into the southbound lanes. And it could have been something so simple. You take your eye off the road for 1 second, and then all of a sudden now you're on the wrong side of the road, and taking out some of the shrubbery here, took out a sign, and it's about 50 yards where the part of that sign right behind that tree came to rest. You can see part of another part of that sign over there. But how lucky the driver was, Tiger Woods, considering really just spliced right between a power line and a big tree, went up some shrubbery and landed right here, the vehicle on the left side, landing on the driver's side. And just another point to show you is you can see all the airbags that were deployed, and a vehicle of this caliber no doubt was surrounded by those driver's side airbags and all around this vehicle. But if you can look at the front of the vehicle, that's the front on the left side. It's almost hard to tell. The rear of the vehicle is on the right side, and it looks at the front of the vehicle took a brunt most of that damage and that impact, which could explain the type of injuries that Tiger Woods sustained that we are now learning of.
I mean, Megan, you can't even make out the front end of that vehicle. It is so smashed in right now. And keep in mind, if he was driving and he's closest to the ground there as that vehicle is flipped over, that is why firefighters most likely needed those hydraulic tools, those specialized tools, jaws of life, to cut him out, because the steering wheel, he'd be wedged, between his chair and the steering wheel, and that'd be the only way that they could get him out. We had Todd Lewis from the Golf Channel on just a short time ago. He was talking with some of the golfers getting ready for the next tournament, and they were just as shocked and stunned as the rest of the world to see these images, to hear about Tiger Woods being involved in this crash. We've been reading about reaction from other PGA star golfers, including Justin Thomas, who counts himself as a friend of Tiger Woods and a buddy of Tiger's son, Charlie. And we understand that he was very emotional when he was just learning about this crash and his reaction, and we have that reaction right now for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sick to my stomach. It hurts to see one of now my closest friends, get in an accident. And, man, I just hope he's all right. Just worried for his kids. I'm sure they're struggling.
And you heard Justin Thomas there saying, I'm just worried about his kids. That's one thing to think about right here. Tiger Woods and his son Charlie, they got a lot of attention just a couple of months ago because they played in a golf tournament together, a televised golf tournament in which there was a lot of attention on their relationship, a father-son relationship, and all eyes were on them, and people were just astounded by how good of a golfer Charlie has become. But it was a little bit rare and unusual for Tiger to essentially allow his children be caught in the spotlight, in the public eye. And the person that they played with, Tiger's competitor in that event, was Justin Thomas. And the thinking was that perhaps they were paired together because Justin is close with Tiger and Tiger's son, and that would make Tiger's son more comfortable. So Tiger and Justin are close clearly close friends, and you could see the emotion. You could hear the
Yeah.
emotion in his voice.
Absolutely.
Obviously concerned about Tiger's children and his friend, Tiger Woods, who's now
Yeah.
undergoing surgery.
It is just so difficult to wrap your brain around. You know, we've talked about this car being the new Genesis SUV. In fact, it is the Genesis 80, and we have some images from Instagram. There he is in front of this vehicle. From the website, it says forward attention warning with IR camera, not to mention no less than 10 airbags to envelop you in a cloud of safety. So we certainly hope that those airbags did help to protect him, but we do know from Tiger's agent that he is currently undergoing surgery for multiple injuries on his legs right now. Adrian, you've brought this up. We have no idea the impact of this crash, what this crash could have done to his back, and he's had 5 back surgeries now, rehabbing from the most recent one, hoping to get to the Masters tournament in April. That had been the focus of his attention right now. And now this.
Right, you know, and he was hoping to get back. He didn't sound that was a big news flash over the weekend when he did not commit to playing in the Masters in Augusta, and everyone knows that he loves playing in that tournament. He's had sustained success at that tournament, first winning it, I think, back in 1997. That was a remarkable landmark win, you know, in his career. It was his first major victory, and so it was also the site of his comeback victory. You know, when people didn't think that he'd be able to come back, he did so, I believe, at age 43 or so, and was able to kind of shock the world in terms of being able to come back from all these back surgeries. And obviously the game has taken a toll on his body, in which he's needed 5 back surgeries, as you've mentioned, Carolyn, but he's also had neck surgeries, knee surgeries. You know, his body's gone through a lot playing that game, and there's absolutely, there's no way that, you know, this isn't taking a tremendous toll on his body, and we're all curious about the impact that this would have had on his back. And, you know, to be quite honest with you, will he be able to come back from this again? Because he's come back so many times. You know, how many times can he come back? This is such a serious incident and accident and crash here. Will his body allow him to play once again? We don't know.
You know, and it's one thing that, as Todd Lewis from the Golf Channel was saying to us, you just never count Tiger out. I mean, of course, we don't know the extent of the severity of the injuries, but when you see this vehicle, you know that they must be severe.
Right.
We pointed out that it appears he rolled this vehicle at relatively full speed, in that there are no skid marks at the scene, and we can see where it came to a rest, and multiple, well, we assume it was a multiple rollover crash here, but it is on the driver's side, and he did have to be extricated by the jaws of life.
Yeah, and there's just, you know, he was hopeful that he'd get back for the Masters. You know, that's at the beginning of April every year, and there's just no way he's going to be able to do that now. You know, his back was already banged up, and now we're talking about multiple injuries to his legs, to his leg, I should say, undergoing surgery right now. So realistically, you know, it is highly unlikely that you would see him play again this year.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of sports fans are really wondering if they're ever going to get to see him play again.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine, you know, as we look at this vehicle, but we do know that he is undergoing surgery right now at Harbor UCLA Medical Center. As we learn a bit more about the crash scene, you know, we did hear early on that there was a second crash that happened when a car that had stopped to help was apparently rear-ended. That was a very minor accident, and the drivers involved in that collision are just fine. So based on that, we do know there were witnesses to what happened here, or at least people who, you know, saw the aftermath probably very close to when this happened. And this all took place at 7:12 this morning.
Yeah, and that's going to be crucial, right, Carolyn, to have witnesses in this case, because seemingly that would be very early on. It doesn't look like that's a super heavily traveled road, so getting any kind of information is going to help investigators piece together how exactly this transpired, because we know that's the big question on many people's minds. You know, not only how is Tiger doing, will he be able to recover, but how exactly did this happen? How did this come to be? And the investigators, obviously, they take a look. They essentially recreate the crash scene here, right? They figure out where the vehicle lost control, what it might have come into contact with, what the speeds might have been, the ending point of all this, the nature of the person's injuries, and they're able to piece together what happened. But witness statements and accounts always help in situations like this. And, you know, perhaps that's why they're just really taking an extra amount of time here with this particular location, Carolyn, because they want to make sure that they get this right. Obviously, this involves a high-profile person. They want to get every case right, but all eyes are on these investigators right now as they search for answers and information. Again, this is over 5 hours now since we've had this collision occur, and that is very rare when you're dealing with a single vehicle crash that is non-fatal, Carolyn. Through my experience in history and covering these crashes, this is a bit rare and unusual that these investigators are still out there at this hour. Yeah,
certainly. And hearing that Tiger has spoken to Golf Digest about his schedule, getting up very early every day between 3 to 5 a.m. So if we consider this crash happened at 7, he well may have been up for some time already, perhaps working on his rehabilitation, trying to go to the gym. You know, who knows? We're speculating here as to what was going on at the time that he was on the road. Megan, we're hearing from some other people who live in this area again about sort of the danger of this road. And I know at one point you were able to kind of swing around a little bit more and to show us, as you're doing now, we can kind of see the curve of it. But when we looked kind of back up, and here we go again, you can really see what's involved here, traveling along Hawthorne Boulevard. Yeah, I know it's a bit challenging to get.
There we go. Hey, let's just getting the camera situated here. I'm going to show you, this is Silver Spur Road and Hawthorne Boulevard. So if you're traveling northbound, you're really coming away from the Pacific Palisades over there. You can see that. And essentially, I kind of want to try to give you a perspective here from News Chopper 4 Alpha. This is Hawthorne Boulevard. And just as you pass Silver Spur Road, you start going downhill. And as local residents are saying, if you drive this area and you're not familiar with it, it can be a little tricky, especially with some of these turns here. So as we come up right in this area, this is Black Horse Road, starts getting a little steeper, and then you have to start making a couple of S turns here. And Carolyn, we are kind of guesstimating based on the evidence of what we see is as we come up on one of these S turns here, this is where the vehicle right here began to cross over Hawthorne Boulevard, again traveling northbound, which is bringing it going downhill, and crossed over into the southbound lanes. Those vehicles would be going uphill, and in the evidence here you can see the debris scattered across the southbound lanes of Hawthorne Boulevard. There's that sign. That's about 50 yards from the initial impact, which really kind of gives you an indication of just how fast this vehicle was going. You can see fluid from the vehicle still on the ground. That is the southbound lanes of Hawthorne Boulevard. And Carolyn, you brought out a really good point earlier, no skid marks. So it just shows this vehicle was traveling at a high rate of speed, narrowly missing a power line, really kind of just jig-jagged in between that tree.
Okay, it looks like we've lost the picture temporarily, but it looks like we have it back on. Okay, Megan, we lost your picture temporarily, but we're back.
Back over here.
Yeah.
And so this is where the vehicle landed, and again, just speed definitely a factor. Again, we're not saying that contributed to the accident. The cause is being investigated. We have accident reconstructionists on scene right now, getting all the information. And of course, this crash involving such a high-profile person, we are starting to see looky-loos in this area. So people are starting to come here, and you know, earlier we saw a couple of people on top of this hill. We're not sure if they're residents or so, but deputies are still on scene. This is they need to secure the scene. All this is evidence here. They're still going to have to do an inventory of that vehicle. Not sure if that has been done, but that will be part of the investigation, inventorying that vehicle and seeing what was inside.
People need to stay away from this area. That's only going to make life more difficult and the work more challenging for these investigators who are just trying to do their job the right way, get as much information as they can, as methodically as they can. And when you start introducing other people and other vehicles to this scene, it only makes that more difficult. We're getting some more reaction coming in right now. Lindsey Vonn, of course, the famous Olympic skier, also a former girlfriend of Tiger Woods, has tweeted that she is, quote, praying for TW right now, and then used the emoji, the prayer hands emoji. So we know that Tiger's on Lindsey's mind right now. They were very close for several years and very supportive of each other in their athletic endeavors. And also the PGA Tour now issuing a statement as well. I'm going to read this off for you. We have been made aware of Tiger Woods' car accident today. We are awaiting further information when he comes out of surgery. On behalf of the PGA Tour and our our players. Tiger is in our prayers, and he has the full support, our full support, as he recovers. Carolyn, so a lot of people starting to weigh in as they find out about what happened to Tiger Woods as he undergoes surgery to multiple injuries to his leg following this horrific crash. And
I know, Megan, we're going to have to say goodbye to your live shot for us shortly here, but I wanted to ask you about this. This, to my understanding, is the first investigator we've seen this close to the vehicle.
I'm sorry, Carolyn, if you were talking to me, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, is this the first investigator we've seen this close to the vehicle? I feel like we've seen them sort of working their way up to this Genesis SUV.
Yeah, since we've been on scene, I've actually seen them come a little close to that vehicle here. Again, this is the first investigator right there. They're obviously taking photos and detailing everything. So the investigation is making itself a little closer to this vehicle where it ended up here after this accident. And this entire area, we want to remind you, is a secured location. Hawthorne Boulevard essentially shut down both directions until this accident until they can get all the details they need. And then once they remove this vehicle, which they will do later on, that's going to be one of the last things they're going to do to remove the vehicle. But Hawthorne Boulevard will remain closed right now until further notice.
And Megan, can you make out what that is, I guess, to the top side, I guess, near the sunroof of that vehicle, with that debris right there? What is that exactly? Can you tell?
That right there?
Right there, yeah.
Yeah. You know what's it's really hard to tell where it's such a high altitude, but it could be debris from inside the car. I mean, I believe this vehicle did roll just by evidence of that. The vehicle rolling, no doubt. Whatever was inside the vehicle was thrown out of that vehicle. The trajectory just throwing stuff out. And fortunately, we do want to point out it's a pretty good indication that Tiger Woods had his seatbelt on. Had he not, it could have been a very different situation, but such a severe accident here. You can see LA County Sheriff investigators making their way onto the scene right now, and all that evidence there, all the debris, they're going to mark that, inventory everything, and they're going to make sure they do this the right way. They want to find out exactly as to what led up and what caused this vehicle to veer off the road and come and land just right over here.
All right, we want to bring in Mario Solis right now with some more reaction to what has happened here. Mario.
Yeah, initially we heard from his agent, as you two have mentioned, confirming that the accident had happened and the injuries. Reaction is continuing to come in. You talked about Lindsey Vonn, who was very close and still is very close to Tiger Woods. Also, Ian Poulter saying the thoughts are with Tiger Woods and others involved, wishing a speedy recovery, and I hope the injuries are not bad. Someone also pointing out, maybe in a almost ironic way, that after this Tiger Woods news, it's official, we are now in month 14 of 2020. I think making reference of the last year since the pandemic started, since we heard the news of losing Kobe Bryant and that fatal helicopter crash. And so people obviously hoping that Tiger can recover from this. Also some people making mention and remembering the incredible images that we saw when Tiger Woods played with his son Charlie. That was an incredible tournament where Tiger almost, he was acting more like a kid than a son, enjoying every moment and every incredible shot that Charlie was making. As we know, Tiger has not played since he joined his son Charlie. That was at the PNC Challenge a few days before his surgery, and it was there were some magical moments in that tournament. Now, after the surgery, Tiger, as you mentioned, was doubtful, but hopeful that he'd be able to play the Masters. The next 4 events are in Florida. That would include the Players Championship. Now, the last opportunity he would have had to play the Masters would have been the Dell Match Play 2 weeks before Augusta National. But considering the magnitude of this event, we can almost assume that Tiger Woods will not be able to participate in golf in the near future, if at all. So prayers continue pouring in, wishes from people hoping that Tiger can come out of this. Are just, as I said, pouring in, and the amount of goodwill in his direction is just incredible.
And Mario, you bring up a good point, because that's really the last great golfing memory we have right now of Tiger Woods, playing with his son at that tournament. And, you know, Tiger, for as much notoriety as he has, as big of a celebrity that he is, he's very guarded. He's very secretive. He doesn't like to give up too much about his personal life or even his training sessions. But Mario, you brought up we had never really seen Tiger like that. He got more excited for his son's great shots than his own, and you could see him high-fiving each other, giving him a hug. I mean, it was a really great visual to see that father-son bond.
Yeah, that partnership right there, that day was truly incredible. An amazing weekend. Again, Charlie was so focused. He was like of course, a young Tiger, completely focused, not celebrating some of the nice putting and some of the approach shots that he had. While Dad Tiger had this huge smile on his face. It was also beautiful to see them, of course, wearing the same clothes. They had the black slacks, they had the black hats, and the purple golf shirts. It was really a tandem that left such a vivid impression and a memory that many people are still cherishing.
We're looking at live pictures right now, Mario and Adrian, of UCLA Harbor Medical Center, and we understand this is where Tiger Woods was brought after the accident. Megan, this is relatively close to the accident scene.
Yeah, it's the closest hospital, not too far from the initial accident scene, again off of Hawthorne Boulevard, just south of Black Horse Road. That's where the accident happened earlier this morning. We do know that Tiger Woods is undergoing surgery right now, sustaining some serious injuries to his legs. That's the initial reports that we have. News Chopper for Alpha, we're heading in to get some fuel, but as we're doing that, we're flying over Harbor UCLA Hospital right now. This is just south of the 405 and just west of the 110 freeway. If you're familiar with this is right off of South Vermont Avenue and West Carson Street.
Yeah, and we know it was the LA County firefighters and paramedics who brought Tiger to this hospital via ambulance for his injuries that we understand, multiple injuries to his leg, so significant that he's undergoing surgery right now. But we want to bring Mario Solis back in. And Mario, there are a few athletes, a few celebrities in the world where you just hear one name, their first name, and that's all you need to know, and it kind of sparks a reaction, a visceral, emotional reaction, and Tiger's one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. He's one of the few. All you need to say is Tiger.
Right.
Kobe, Pele, people like that, athletes that have left an incredible mark, an incredible career, and have become bigger than life. Tiger Woods is one of them. I mentioned how I've covered him in a few tournaments, and the way people have responded to him is surreal. It's almost as if there's no other player on the golf course. Wherever Tiger is where you'll find the crowd. Wherever you hear a cheer, that's where Tiger just made a long, 8-foot par putt. That's just the way it is with Tiger. He is accustomed to that. He's never been completely comfortable with the spotlight. From the day he started getting interviews as a young child to the days when he became a superstar in the sport, he always seemed to shy away from that spotlight. And in many occasions, he had interviews with Oprah Winfrey, for example, and always admitting that he was never that comfortable with having all that attention on him. So sort of a shy personality, always enjoying the game and finding solace, finding that spot where he could just retire from the world, focus completely on golf, and just enjoy the thing that he loved the most, which is playing golf and making his father proud. Yeah,
I mean, you bring up a good point. And let's keep in mind that, I mean, he gained celebrity at a very young age. I mean, he was playing in a professional sports event, the PGA Tour event, while he was in high school. I mean, that's just not normal. That's not something that even, elite athletes who go on to be professionals really do. You don't really hear of that all that often. And he was playing at a golf tournament here. I mean, he grew up in Orange County. He was playing that golf tournament at Riviera at a very young age. And ever since then, the cameras have been following him, following his success, following his personal life. And that's a lot of scrutiny to be under, Mario.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we remember the early images of Tiger Woods when his father Earl would take him to even talk shows, for example, just to show off his incredible golfing ability. They would ask him questions and he wouldn't even reply. Not even a yes, not a no, just a simple nod. Just a shy little child who truly enjoyed the game and who was putting and teeing off better than Bob Hope and all the people that were interviewing back in the day when he was only 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah, I mean, he really kind of captivated the nation. I forgot about those videos even. So we're going back even further when he was just a toddler, essentially, that he was gaining that attention. It's just, it's really sad to see what has happened here, Mario. You talked about how important his charitable organization is, and that's one thing he's giving back to local kids. He grew up in Orange County. He played golf with his father at the Navy golf course in Orange County in the Anaheim area. And so obviously, Southern California is very near and dear to his heart, and his charitable organization we talked about, Mario, just reached 2 major milestones this year. I talked with some of the folks over there, and they turned 25 this year, the charity did, as well as they just touched their 2 millionth children. It's impacted 2 million children globally, but most of those kids are right here in Southern California because the foundation's based here in Orange County. The Learning Lab is in Anaheim. We've profiled that location many times, and so he's had a tremendous impact on the youth, on kids here in Southern California.
Adrian, I want to talk to you a little bit more about that because you've actually sat down with Tiger on more than one occasion, at times when he wasn't really wanting to speak to reporters, but he felt so passionately about the charity that he wanted to talk to you about it. I mean, tell me about how he was when speaking about this.
His eyes just absolutely lit up. You start talking about some of these kids that this foundation has pushed through. I mean, they've gone to colleges and universities. Some of the kids have gone through this foundation all over the country. I mean, I'm talking about top-notch, really higher education learning institutions. And these kids were much like him. Many of them are minorities from middle class or lower income backgrounds, and they just need that little bit of a push, a little bit of a nudge, and he was so excited that they're able to provide that at the Learning Lab in Anaheim. We just recently profiled a young man named Andres who started going to the Learning Lab when he was in 5th grade. He's from Anaheim, and now he just graduated college. He graduated, I believe, from Fullerton, and then the foundation had such a great impact on his life that he's now a learning facilitator, a teacher, for lack of a better term, at that facility in Anaheim. So he wants to give back. He's had this sustained success, and he wants to share it with kids who grew up like him, and that's what it's all about for Tiger. And also the fact that they focus on STEM education. Tiger Woods is really into science and engineering, very important to his sport. In order, it's all about angles and geometry and getting the equipment fit right. So he's a self-proclaimed nerd, and he loves just talking with these kids about STEM classes and what these kids are able to do. It's remarkable. I mean, we're talking literally about these kids are studying rocket science. They're developing video games. They're making apps for your phone and your tablet. So the work that they do over at that organization, the foundation, is really remarkable. And again, it helps out so many kids. 2 million kids, Carolyn.
It's just remarkable to me as well, Adrian, that foundation has been in existence for 25 years. I mean, he started it early on, didn't he?
Yeah, 25 years. It was something that, it was a passion that he shared with his father that they wanted to give back. And I don't know if you remember, but his father had kind of this proclamation that Tiger Woods was going to really change the world. And if you really think about it in terms of not only the fans of golf and him as an athlete, but, if you impact 2 million children, I mean, you have changed the world in some sense.
Yeah, and no doubt. And this was something he was so passionate about. And, he continues to contribute to that charitable organization. And, of course, we will continue to follow developments there as well. Mario, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still with you. I just wanted to chime in on the fact that Tiger Woods, despite the incredible achievements that he's had on the golf course, he was almost more proud of TGR Foundation than anything else. He would light up. Adrian, you mentioned that every time he talked about charity, helping children, he would light up. Really proud of the accomplishments. Yes, this was a banner year for the foundation. I did a story on memorabilia. He wouldn't really sign a lot of memorabilia. There are some incredible pieces out there, and many a time he would partner up with these organizations or companies and donate a great portion of the proceeds to his TGR Foundation. That's how dedicated he was to helping the youth. That's how he wanted to not only teach the game, but also, as you pointed out, technology, learning the importance of succeeding in life through doing something that you absolutely loved. And he didn't really do that many one-on-one interviews. When you really look back, he's only done the big interviews with Oprah, as we spoke a little while ago. Every now and then he would do one-on-ones. I've had the opportunity to have had a couple of these with Tiger Woods, talking about new equipment, talking about the foundation. I even brought a putter with me so he could sort of feel it. It was a prototype. You know, he was happy to just put it into use and thought that it was a little flawed. He goes, it's not really balanced perfectly. So there we go back to angles and weights and all that. But again, it was one of those memorable interviews in which Tiger Woods was just unguarded, a one-on-one in which he didn't feel there was any reason for him to be attacked, which I think there was always that uncomfortable feeling. What kind of question is going to come my way? The controversial questions. But in that occasion, it was just fun and games, and it was a very memorable day with Tiger Woods.
And we should point out, Mario, he certainly did have his demons as he went through, you know, multiple back surgeries and some issues with pain management and all. And just incredible to watch how he fought through all that to take the Masters 3 years ago.
Yeah, the way he was able to come back after 10 years of not winning, to come back in that inspirational way, that was one of those tournaments that are really hard to forget. And then celebrating when his son, at the end of it, comes under the ropes and celebrates with him, that was just a remarkable achievement in sports.
I think what resonated with so many people with that particular win, even if you're not a golf fan, is that people look back to, what was it, 1997 when he won the Masters for the first time, and he walked off and he hugged his dad, and his dad is now gone, you know, and then some 20 years later he wins and he celebrates with his son. And I think that really resonates with people. It's kind of that circle of life, and they were able to see, essentially, you see Tiger grow up from, you know, being a teenager, a young man, to, you know, more of a middle-aged man and a father, and I think that really humanized him, you know, that he's not just a golfer, you know, a great golfer, but he's dad, you know.
It was such an emotional victory.
Impacting,
I just want to mention that
so many people.
Indeed, Mario, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're at the top of the hour at 1 o'clock, and we just want to recap for our viewers who might just be joining us. We're staying with this breaking news coverage of the accident involving Tiger Woods. It all happened about 7:12 this morning. We're told by the L.A. Sheriff's Department they responded to a single vehicle rollover traffic collision. This happened at the border of Rolling Hills Estates and Rancho Palos Verdes. Here you see the scene of the accident. The vehicle was traveling northbound on Hawthorne Boulevard at Black Horse Road when it crossed all lanes, crossed into the southbound lanes. No skid marks to be seen here, and it landed there where you see it. The jaws of life had to be used to extricate Tiger, obviously, from the driver's side of that vehicle. This is the new Genesis 80. It was a car that he was driving for the Genesis tournament at the Riviera Country Club. It was the courtesy car given to him to ride in, and we've seen pictures of him in front of this vehicle on Instagram. This is the very vehicle that he was driving in. It comes with 10 airbags to keep you in a cloud of safety. It is equipped with some cameras, so it'll be interesting to see what information we are able to glean from this. Adrian.
Yeah, and just seeing that picture on Instagram, you know, just what a difference a couple days make. You know, you see Tiger standing in front of that vehicle with a big smile on his face, and now we know that he's undergoing surgery for multiple injuries to, we understand now, both of his legs. We're getting further clarification regarding that, but again, he was taken to a hospital by LA County firefighters and paramedics and is undergoing surgery, according to his agent. Multiple injuries to both of his legs, and again, this is perhaps the greatest golfer of all time, born here in Orange County. So much history here with Orange County and the tournament over at Riviera Country Club. Perhaps, again, the world's greatest golfer, sustaining major injuries. And keep in mind that he's coming off 5 back surgeries, as you mentioned, Carolyn, including a spinal fusion. So we don't know the toll that this crash has taken on his body, you know, altogether in terms of how his back might be right now. But that damage, as you can see, to the vehicle is just catastrophic. The windshield, you know, just crushed. That might be when the firefighters had to go in there. And you had mentioned the jaws of life, Carolyn. I always like to point out that those are special hydraulic tools, really, that only first responders have to essentially cut people out of wreckage when there's no other option to pull them out, or, you know, for them to get out on their own. They have to cut them out of that wreckage to get them the treatment that they need. And that had to be used there. We had asked news chopper for a short time ago, Megan Reyes up in there, if she could identify some of that debris or wreckage that's right outside of the top end of that vehicle. And I'm told from some of our producers that there might be a Nike training bag there. Of course, Nike, a big sponsor of Tiger Woods. But again, that's evidence that's going to be collected in this case. They're going to take every piece of debris and evidence that they have here, mark it, and eventually take it away. And the last thing that'll be removed from this particular scene will be the vehicle itself, Carolyn.
Yeah, indeed. And, this crass investigation has been going on, coming up on 6 hours now. Both sides of Hawthorne Boulevard shut down. This is a major thoroughfare, traffic being redirected. You and I have spoken about how unusual this is to have a scene like this closed for this length of time, but there is a lot to investigate here. We know that he was traveling northbound on Hawthorne Boulevard when he crossed over, knocked out a sign, left a bit of a debris field there on the road. We could see fluid on the road as well. The car then went through a series of trees and shrubbery, missed the power pole, fortunately, because you can only imagine how catastrophic it would have been had a major obstacle like that, and then landed here. And Adrian, you spoke about using the jaws of life. Keep in mind that the car is resting on the driver's side, so that made it all the more difficult for rescuers to extricate Tiger. So they did go through the windshield. They pulled the windshield out. You can see all the airbags have deployed in the vehicle here, and they were able to get him out and take him to Harbor UCLA Medical Center, where